Hello, everyone. Today, we're dedicating this episode to the parents in our audience. If you're a parent who has struggled with overwhelm, with guilt, or are just seeking ways to bring a greater sense of peace into your household, then you don't want to miss this episode. Today, we are joined with Dr. Nelly Farnoody Zahiri. She is a renowned clinical psychologist and speaker who specializes in parenting. She's the author of the book Peace Parenting Essentials: Cultivating Peace and Empathy in Your Children's World. Dr. Nelly has been in active practice for over 14 years in Los Angeles, California, and we're so happy to have you join us here in this conversation. Dr. Nelly, welcome.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, Dr. Nelly, today we're going to focus on one of the 5 C's that you talk about in your book. In your book, you mentioned compassion, communication, cooperation, culture, and conservation as the 5 C's. We're going to focus on the first one, compassion, particularly self-compassion as parents. I found a definition here for self-compassion, and I'm going to read it to you, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Self-compassion. It is the practice of extending the same kindness to yourself that you would offer to someone you care about, especially during moments of failure, inadequacy, or suffering. What do you think of that definition, and what would you add to it?
I like the definition. It's comprehensive and yet simplified. I think parents really enjoy it when it's simple, it's practical. I'm a parent of three, and things get hectic as a parent. So I think the less we intellectualize this, and the more we express our, you know, personal experiences, or do deep dive into emotionally what it feels like to show up for one's sense of self as a parent, as a partner, and so forth. I think it becomes more and more valuable. There are times during your parenting journey when you're faced with adversity, with challenges, with obstacles, with trauma. Uh, and during those times, your nervous system doesn't automatically go to a place of, oh, let me just calm myself down. Let me just pour love and support and kindness and care onto my soul and spirit, and and sit with this and feel, loved before I make a decision to do A, B, and C. Oftentimes we react, we go into this fight or flight state. Sometimes we are aware and sometimes we're not. I can share personally, having gone through this journey, my sort of parenting journey is coming to a place where we have adult kids now. Our teenagers turned 18. So I can share from early days when I was breastfeeding and really trying to show up for the kids, to now when, the kids are adults and wanting to flee the nest and make their own decisions and so forth. It is quite a journey. And along the way, as parents, co-parents, people in your tribe, the people around you are trying to support you as part of that parenting journey, you're going to run into a lot of obstacles. Nursing comes with poor sleep. I was nursing twins, so that was really, a lot. I remember a time when I was just so frustrated with not being able to, you know, get up every 3 hours and show up for my babies. And then I had to really take a moment and say, what's really going on? Like, why am I not enough in this moment? So you do hit these touch points, I like to call them, when regression is natural. Regression is part of your leveling up and growth, your evolution, right? And I think if we lose sight of that, if we are unable to take a moment, pause, and say, it's okay. Like, it's okay to cry in this moment. It's okay to say, I'm exhausted. I can't feed you. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say no when every like cell in your body wants to say yes because of your maternal um, instincts. So it's really getting to a place where you get good at calming your own nervous system.
Mm.
So in order to calm your nervous system, first you have to become aware of who you are. What are your triggers? But like I realized very early on in my motherhood journey that I don't do well with poor sleep. Like I need my sleep. And if I wasn't getting my sleep, I would ask for help.
Mm.
I would ask my partner, I would ask, my parents, I would ask whoever was there and willing to show compassion for me. It truly does take a village. I think one lesson of parenting that many parents that I talk to and work with, we all always nod our heads and agree, is that you have to connect, you have to build your community, you have to be able to trust your community, your family, your friends, your village.
Okay.
And we come from a cultural heritage background that it's innate. Like we have that epigenetics that we rely on each other. We're interdependent by like thousands of years of cultural heritage. So we are good at that. We are good at asking for help and relying on family and relying on, that connection. I think what benefited me was knowing when to say no. No, thank you. You know, this is like a boundary that I need to hold because it calms my nervous system. An example was at the hospital when I had just given birth and I was determined to, nurse and breastfeed. I remember my mom coming and saying, it's okay. Like, why are you struggling? Just give her a bottle. Because she was from the generation where, bottle feeding was part of their parenting experience. So she thought, no, it's okay. Like you can mix, you can have a hybrid system. You don't have to just nurse. You can, and I remember like I thought, no, like I don't need to hear that right now. And I asked my mom, I said, can you please give me some space? I need to figure this out, mom. And that's an example of when that communal sense of self, when mom and dad and mother-in-law and father, like the family members, everyone is there to support you. And yet you can say no to that help because it's triggering or it's not good for your mental health. So it's quite a journey, and you have to constantly be aware, self-aware, socially be aware, and know how to calm your nervous system, how to surround yourself with people who know how to calm your nervous system, and also be open and flexible to learn and grow and evolve. Like that's something that I had to learn. I always say like God has a sense of humor because here I am, I studied parenting. I worked with, some of the top attachment theory specialists and, mentored and did all my research and everything. And yet, God said, no, 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 you're going to have twins. You're going to have another one. You're going to have three kids.
My
We're
God,
going to
you had
like, we're going
twins.
to, we're going to put you in a situation where you're going to be helpless. You're going to be that mom that you tried to help. And honestly, like there was a time where I was just having so much compassion, like understanding some of the clients I had helped before I had
Mm.
children. And I thought to myself, my gosh, like I was so judgmental and determined to like teach some of these families what I thought was intellectually, the right way to parent. And sure enough, none of that was really practical when it came to being in a situation where you're overwhelmed and your parasympathetic response is just like you're as Dan Siegel would say, you have flipped your lid, your brain is just hijacked by it, you're overwhelmed by these emotions. And in those moments, what does it mean to calm your nervous system, to show up for yourself, be self-compassionate?
Thank you. Mitra, I'm curious to hear how you relate to what Dr. Nelly is sharing here as a parent
Yeah.
in your parenting journey.
Completely connect to that, relate to that, and agree with that. And to understand that compassion is different than kindness. Kindness is easy. Kindness, I can just be a really nice, kind woman. But compassion is when there's a suffering, when there's a special circumstances, and it's very difficult to stay kind. And yeah, I mean, all of that is true. From psychological point of view, it's just that understanding, realization that we're not perfect and things happen, and we need to give ourselves that compassion.
Hmm.
From scientific point of view, Dr. Nelly referred to Dr. Dan Siegel's work. It's more about connection, the brain connection, but I'm, as you know, more interested in the energetic aspect of this. When energetically, especially the mother in the family or whoever is playing the nurturing role, because now we live in an age that it's not necessarily the mother. So whoever is the nurturing person in the family, energetically, it's about really alignment. To me, compassion is about alignment, and lack of compassion is lack of alignment, meaning we haven't fully understood what human beings are and why we're here. And when we understand that, we have allowance, if you wish, for times that it's difficult, times that we mess up, times that I know everything, but I cannot embody it in this moment. And in this moment, what I need to do is to just attend to myself and realign myself. And from that realignment, then it would be much easier to attend to others. So I always say, because I love you, I have compassion for me. Because
Hmm.
when I am in compassionate state for self, I can actually contribute and connect and interconnect in a different way. So to your friend, Ben, that said, I don't have for compassion, your children, no matter how young, actually the younger, the better, they feel your energetic
Mm.
resonance or lack thereof. They know that everything is good, dinner is ready, the home is fantastic, it's decorated well, it's clean, but there is something energetically missing. And actually, they connect to energetic fields far better and easier than adults who've been conditioned by physicality and mentality do. So you are not doing anybody a favor when you are not aligned within yourself.
Yeah, it reminds me, I've done such deep inner child work and have gone back to those memories. And one of the things that was very dysregulating for me was seeing when my mom was dysregulated. And I've developed this hyper awareness. I'm in a relationship right now and I have it now. There's this hyper awareness when I notice someone, especially someone I'm in an intimate relationship with, is dysregulated or out of alignment. I can just perceive that if what they're saying and what they're feeling is different, I feel that. I just remember how much as a child that actually scared me. It made me feel scared and unsafe. I really resonate with what you're sharing, Mitra. To understand a little bit better what you mean by alignment, I think I understand it. I just want to make sure I'm clear. When you say alignment, it's about finding our center. Is that what you mean? Finding our inner peace, finding our center,
Yes,
coming.
that's the doing part, but the being part is really uh, understanding that, and this is just my understanding, that as a human being, if I have physicality and if I am on earth, that means I have come to be completed. So I am incomplete at this state. And in the state of incompleteness, there needs to be so-called mistakes so I can retake and then learn how to take life in a different way. So it's really a better understanding of our humanity and why we're here. So if I expect perfection, I always say perfection probably can be found. I don't know. I don't remember my memory of being energetic being only. I'm sure like angelic world has a lot of perfection, or so we've been told. But I don't know. I don't have it. I know I don't have it because my life, it's exactly what the graph of my heart and my brain is. If I'm alive, you can see it's up and down and up and down and up and down. I remember Dr. Rosenberg, working with him. God bless him; he's no longer here. When we were working in a small group, and somebody asked uh, that my partner asked me, "Do you love me?" And Dr. Rosenberg said, when do I love you? And they said, look, what do you mean? Everybody was confused. He said, because we're emotional beings. Like, half an hour ago, I loved you, but right now I'm so like provoked by you that it's hard for me to say I love you. So really understanding that the nature of human beings are not as we like it to be, and according to books and textbooks, it is what we would like it to be that way. And so I am bound to make mistakes. And when I do, I say, my teacher used to call it whoopsing. It's like, whoops, that didn't work. It's just like using it as a verb, it's a verb for me. It's like, whoops. I put the phone down. My children are adult, Nelly. So usually it's just phone. They live in another city. And it's like, that didn't work. Mom, oh, okay. Talk to you later, honey. Love you. Like, that
I
didn't
love
work.
that.
Knowing when to
So it's
pull
like
back.
whoopsing becomes
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
your parenting. Anyways,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what Mitra just shared, Dr. Nelly.
It's lovely. It's reassuring. It sounds like Mitra's ahead as far as like parenting lifespan, So I love hearing parents sort of wisdom, sharing wisdom of how things are, how things have evolved as we become parents of adults. It's really creating space for us to even separate, individuate more. I always say to parents, separation, individuation is such a great opportunity to evolve, even like do a deeper dive on one's evolution and conscious development. I know when my kids' babies were around two roughly, that was the first time that I really observed them wanting to separate and individuate. That's when they suddenly want to run away and they look back to just make sure, mom and dad are there, but I still want to go explore the world and go be an adventure and have my own space and energy field and my own alignment and all that. And I remember really being excited for them. Like I was celebrating their freedom, really, for them to have that sense of, even when they say no, I would hear it as some of my colleagues would say, terrible twos. I said, please don't call it terrible twos. It's the glorious twos. Like, this is the time, honestly, like, this is the time that you want to be so excited because their individuality is unfolding before your eyes. Like, you're seeing their conscious living, like, they're telling you who they are. Like, I'm the kind of person who's cautious, or I'm the kind of person who wants to run and like climb up the tree, or I'm the kind of person who's going to teach you a lesson, mom, or, those things are so valuable. And so these touch points where you see them evolve like before your eyes, again, it's an inside out process. Like I started paying more attention. This is the self-compassion part. I started paying more attention to what does this mean to me, like to my own growth and development, and questioning sort of my intergenerational patterns with my mom and even grandma. I would ask questions from grandma. Hey, grandma, like, what was it like between you and mom? And like, I got so curious. It was so exciting for me. Like, speaking of energy, energy wise, those were the times developmentally that I felt most excited. And I feel this time is coming up for them once again. Now, they're fleeing the nest and they're starting to figure out, like, who am I? Like, what kind of a person do I want to be and live my life? And who am I attracted to? And who do I love to help and have impact? And those things are very exciting. And I think as parents who are immigrants, right? We have the sort of, we're this third culture kid where we don't belong here. I mean, I was born in Kansas, I was born here, raised here, lived in Iran for a few years. So I speak Farsi, read and write Farsi. But what I've experienced as a third culture kid is we are blessed in that we know what it means to live in that interconnection, the interdependence. We're so family oriented, right? Everything's about family, family, family. But we're raised here with this focus on ego and individualism and being bold and blah, 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 like all those things that come with, especially here in LA, if you're raised here in LA. But I like to say, as a third culture kid, or those who relate to this experience, we also have baggages. One baggage, and I don't know, Mitra, if you relate with this, is like our parents, like I know for sure my parents were overprotective. We're super overprotective. My dad didn't let me go to the prom. Like,
Oh,
to this day, I'm like traumatized.
oh, wow.
No, I like worked through it, so it's I'm exaggerating, but honestly, like, they were overprotective. They're like, no, they said no to a lot, when developmentally that was like a natural thing for any teenager to experience, right? But I know a lot of parents now, like today, who are saying no to their daughters going to the prom because they're scared, they're going to get drunk, they're going to have sex, something bad is going to happen. What I think is fair to say is, as a community, like, part of this is, impacting community. As a community, can we sort of let go some of this fear and step into a field, an energy field, where we're celebrating autonomy? I think autonomy is beautiful. I think having freedom to say no is beautiful. I think giving permission for our teenagers to make some of their own decisions and make mistakes and live through those mistakes and be okay, like, celebrate those mistakes.
Mm.
Gift of failure, man. Like, I am a huge advocate, huge, huge, huge advocate of parents celebrating. And I don't even necessarily want to call it failure, because it's just an experience. I like calling it's an adventure.
Hmm.
So you go on this adventure. It it's a whoopsie, as you said, Mitra, or it's not. Like, it's a whoopoo. Like, so it's whoopsie or hoo-hoo, and either way, you're learning. And my son said this the other day, which I was so, like, inside. I was doing a cha-cha dance. I was so happy. Um, the, they're, applying to college now. So they're going through this tense, anxious phase where they're all waiting, like, who's going to get into what college, blah, blah, blah. And I said, so where's your mind? Like, what are you? She said, Mom, actually, I am so excited for getting rejected.
Ah,
I said, oh my gosh,
There
are
you
you
go.
serious? He's like, I am so excited, because that's just going to be fuel, like, under my, I'm going to be so motivated. Like, that is going to lead to so much growth for me. I think if I did get accepted, that's like, so whatever. Okay. I got to my goal, but, like, getting rejected is more exciting. I said, praise the Lord. Like, go preach, go tell all your friends about this feeling, because I am definitely very, very proud and excited about you feeling this way.
and
And I'm
that's
excited.
alignment. When you were
Yes.
asking, that's
Yes.
alignment. That's the
Yeah.
sign of alignment, that I
Mm-hmm.
understand that I need to learn
Mm-hmm.
lessons, and this is life, and this is the
Mm.
university of life.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
getting
Yep.
rejection from actual university institutions is part of my humbleness and learning, and being,
Mm-hmm.
like, more encouraged and more clear and more
Yep.
focused on what I want. That's alignment. That's, your son is completely aligned. That's alignment.
And this perspective that we're talking about here, life as a university, and embracing imperfection and embracing failure, I feel this is such a core component to self-compassion, because when we can really celebrate that perspective, then it's a lot easier when our child is going through a difficult time and there's little we can do about it. We can, at least in some way, celebrate that or embrace that. Or when as a parent we feel like we're just not doing enough, we can celebrate that this is the university of life. There's something in this for me. What is this here to teach me? How can I be curious, and how can I learn about myself through this process?
Yeah.
I really
Exactly.
love this perspective, because it's when you carry that, self-compassion doesn't become a doing, it becomes a being.
Mm.
It's so much easier to have self-compassion. I was talking the other week, Dr. Nelly, to a friend of mine. One of my best friends, he asked me if I'd be willing to speak with his wife, because his wife has been dealing with a lot of overwhelm. And he knows that I'm in the meditation space and I'm all about Zen and personal development.
Those
And
kind
he's
of
like, maybe
things.
you have some perspectives that can help her. And I spoke with her and she's like, Ben, I feel so overwhelmed. I just feel like there's not enough I can do. She's got I think a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and the 3-year-old and the 1-year-old are not getting along with each other. Or I should say, the 3-year-old is jealous of the 1-year-old, and she's like, I just feel like I'm drowning, and then I feel guilty that I'm drowning because I feel like I'm not doing enough for them, and I just don't know what to do. And I talked to her about self-regulation and the importance of self-regulation, and she's like, but I just don't have time. When am I going to be able to do that? Curious to hear what each of you would tell her, but what would you tell her, Dr. Nelly?
What I would tell her is 1 and 3, that sort of developmental, stage and age is rough, because the 1-year-old is just teething, the sleep is getting regulated. Everything is happening at the same time. So when you have multiple regressions, now this is the natural regression that we all experience throughout different touch points. I would love for her to start to see this as sort of a big picture of parenting. This is the time when there's a lot of regression, multiple regressions, the two being so close in age, it's going to create a ripple effect, right? So have a lot of grace for yourself, come up with ways in which you can just get through those storms. I remember getting through, like going through the similar, our kids are, our second daughter, third child is similar age difference between the twins. It's rough. It's really rough. And one way to calm your nervous system down is to try to lower the volume of self criticism, being self-judgmental, comparing yourself. Oftentimes, especially nowadays with social media, everything, you're bombarded with those comparisons, the social learning. Before, we lived with extended family members were there to help and support, give breaks. Now, you open your phone and you're seeing like 10 different nice things that these super moms are doing, that everything looks
She mentioned
like,
that too, by the
oh
way.
my
She's
gosh,
comparing herself to other moms.
There you go.
that is a whoopsie. Like, that's something she needs to turn off, like lower the volume, and know that that's not real. That in every family, every moment, um, you're going to have those meltdowns. You're going to have those moments where you're not being an adequate parent. And lack of adequacy does not mean you're a bad parent. It just means in those regressional stages, you just need to wait it out. It's like a storm that you honestly have to just say, okay, what can I do in this moment to calm my nervous system down, the kids, and just get through it? Really, step one, is to let go, lower your expectations, right? Let go of that perfectionism, as we mentioned earlier. Step 2, turn off the social learning environment. So whether that's social media, talking to friends who are not supportive, who trigger her, whatever family members, just turn that off. Step 3, self-care. Like, what is it going to take for me to fill up my emotional tank on a daily basis? I kind of, based on research and looking at these variables, I found the 5 C's to be pretty effective. If you're doing something that culturally satisfies you, or spiritually, satisfies you, that is going to fill your emotional tank as part of your healthy mind platter. If you are self-compassionate, if you show compassion to others, if you get into a conversation with someone who is a loved one, you care about them, collaborate with them, try to partner up with them. Like, those are things that are like your daily vitamins, that if you take them, if you do it, if you're mindful of it, if you're aware of it, I think you start to see little lights, sprinkles here and there, and then it's less overwhelming.
There has to be an initial willingness to do that. And it's what I tried to convey to her, that doing it for herself is not taking away from her children. Taking 10 minutes to self-regulate is not taking anything away from her children. It's actually giving to her children.
Yes,
Can you elaborate on that further?
of course. In the field of self-compassion, the science of self-compassion, Dr. Neff has looked at this variable. Like, how do we predict happiness, longevity, and health, in fact, with individuals, in marriages, at work, healthcare facilities, hospitals, schools, teacher-student relationship. And the number one predictor is self-compassion. In fact, if you go to her website, self-compassion.org, there's a questionnaire that she used for her studies, and you can take it. It takes a few minutes. It gives you valuable information about where you land with self-compassion. So it's very scientific, evidence-based. So that's the science of self-compassion. What I have consistently tried to emphasize with parents is, like, you would go to the dentist every 6 months to clean your teeth. And just as you go annually to check your blood and really make sure that nutritionally you're doing well and physically you're doing well, you maybe perhaps go see a therapist to make sure your mental health is well. I think this is one of those indicators that if you're not doing well with self-compassion, which you can measure, so it's not something that it's vague and, what do you really mean by self-compassion? You can take the questionnaire and measure it and get a number. You get a number, you get feedback. It's a free test on the website. And it gives you valuable information. Like, how am I doing? Am I being kind to myself? And there's so many aspects to it. Like, I've taken the test many times. I do it regularly just to make sure, because it's, sometimes you think, like, I used to think I was self-compassionate, and then I would take it from now and then. And sure enough, like every few months, it would vary, like, the heartbeat, like sometimes high, sometimes low. And then I would get very curious about those dimensions and say, why is it that right now I'm being really hard on myself? Maybe I'm watching too much social media, comparing myself to a lot of other parents, and I'm not measuring up, you know? I'm not measuring up. And maybe that's why. That's like the toxic sort of element that is damaging my sense of self and self-compassion. So you got to constantly kind of watch it, measure it, and be aware of it. And sometimes you might think, like, your ego might tell you, no, 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 you're doing great. Like, you're pretty good at this. And you actually go to the table and you do it and you're like, oh, no, you're not doing great. You're actually failing. So you got to be open to those ideas of
Which is an
let's.
opportunity. Failing is not a bad thing.
Yes, that's
Failing,
right. We
regression are
celebrate.
opportunities. Opportunities for
Celebrate
growth.
opportunities.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to bring in our friends who are listening and see if they can relate to what Dr. Nelly is saying, both as a parent as a professional. And if you're a child listening, I mean, you don't need to be a parent to really relate to this. As a child, as a receiver of compassionate or non-compassionate parents, it's also good to see if are you relating to what we're saying in any kind of way. And I had to say something about your friend's mother, but after that, Mr. Ben, I would like to ask about how you feel as a child. I know you are not a parent yet, but how you felt as you were growing up in your household, as much as you can share. But before we do that, I have something to say about the mother or a mother that is feeling so lost. The first thing we do, we think there is something wrong. We think that we have bad children, or I'm a bad mother, or I'm a bad parent. And it's really understanding, especially with that kind of age difference, that's really a developmental collision. There is no bad children happening in the room. And when we let go of the good and bad, because good and bad belongs to the state of survival and fear, then the whole so-called nervous system settles down. It's like, oh, life is happening. It's not like I have a bad life. I have bad children. I'm a bad parent. It's like understanding that 1 year old is finding a space. Dr. Nelly can talk about this much better than I can. And the 3 year old is asking for control. Hey, I was the solo, ruler of this kingdom. What happened? Who's this newcomer as a new king or queen? So understanding that is very important. So first is knowing that there's no real problem. Two, clarifying what is my role. So this child wants control, this child wants space, and finding itself in this space. And what is my job as a parent? And as a parent, her job is in that example is to just bring a neutral and aligned, if you like, my language, or integrated, more scientific language environment. That's all. So you see them panic, you see them fight. Your job is not to add to the fight and become a triangular kind of fighting situation. So you've got to find your role. My role is to stay out of it and just bring some alignment, bring some normalcy, bring some health to this room that the three of us or four of us or whatever the number of the family members are living. That's my job. And then three is to implement that. So now we have clarification, because at the time of fear, we don't know. We just run. I just scream. I just I don't know what I'm going to do. But when I understand, oh, my job is I see, this regulation. I see misalignment. My job is to bring alignment. So I bring, and you've seen it. I'm sure Dr. Nelly has seen it for more than I have. When children panic, if you just say, I'm sorry, honey, what did you say? So you bring your voice. That's it. Nothing else. I don't need to be a specialist. I just say, what did you say? And they go quiet. They were just screaming. I literally do that in gatherings when they're children. I go down at their level and then I ask them. And then they say, oh, I was saying, and then they just give their complaints. So screaming, panicking, fear, running stops, because you just said, this is the tone that can be done in this moment. That's all. So one, you know that there's no problem. Two, you clarify your role. Three, you make sure in the times of crisis, as they call it in the family, your role, you do what your role is. You're just calm it down. That's it. Nothing is happening. There's no wrong things happening in the room. You're not a bad parent. They are not bad children. They just have collision in their development. One is going here, the other one is going there. So there's a little bit of a collision happening here.
When I hear you talking about the parent who's being hard on themselves, and think something is wrong, what I actually see is actually a younger version, the inner child of that parent, screaming that when they were kids, they weren't doing enough and that things weren't right. So, for me, my journey has been applying those very same principles, Mitra, to myself. I remember I used to be so frustrated that I had anxiety. right? I just would get a lot of social anxiety in certain situations, and it frustrated me because I had a standard and expectation of how I thought I should be socially, and I was just feeling anxious and small and insecure. And that, persisted for years and years until I was able to recognize, oh my God, what's really happening is there's this wounded inner child in me that I had forgotten about that is just screaming for me to come down to his level and to just hear him and to be with him. It was very profound for me to do that with myself, recognizing that there is an inner child within me who's yearning to be heard and to be loved. That journey has led me to even here and now doing this podcast. I mean, 5 years ago, it would have been hard for me to conceive of that because of how much anxiety I had and I was dealing with. So recognizing that we all also have our inner child that wants to be tended to can be really meaningful and invariably translates to how we are as parents towards our kids and towards others. It just naturally leads to compassion and understanding.
Dr. Nelly, do you think in that moment when the parent panics, they are also in their uh, undeveloped child state?
It's very complex to know what's happening in those moments, like when you're in the eye of the storm. It could be your own background patterns, unresolved issues, unfinished business. It could be temperament. Like temperament is an area, a topic that I talk to parents a lot. And I think parents knowing their child's temperament is a game changer,
Mm,
because if you have a child who's intense, if you have a child who's rigid and unable to adapt, they get stuck on something. And when you were talking about the sort of that dynamic of the king noticing prince or king on on the making, yeah, it depends on temperament, because if you have an easygoing child, if that 1 year old is easygoing, I bet you it's a very different dynamic, like very different dynamic. And so for parents to know, be aware from the get-go, like at birth, we now have the tools to know what kind of a kid you have. Like temperament wise, there are 9 dimensions to one's temperament. So I always start, like in the early years, I say, know your child's temperament, because the epigenetics, like who they are at birth, these biogenetic factors are huge. Because what happens is sometimes we're alike. Sometimes like we have 3 kids, 3 very different temperaments. One of our children is very much like me, so I identify with her temperament. I kind of relate to her temperament. I get her. The other daughter could not, we were like so different. She actually reminds me a lot of my mom's temperament. So temperaments are different, right? And so if you don't have the right fit, the goodness of fit, it's like a key and a lock, right? If you don't have that, then you have to be aware. Like I have to constantly be self-aware and say, okay, in this moment, I'm just not getting her. Like I have to see it through a different lens and be more flexible, because in order to create an environment that best supports my child's development, my duty as parent is to create that goodness of fit. And so, for instance, if you have a child who's very uh, like regulated, that kid benefits from being in environments where there's a little bit more creativity and a little bit more sort of encouragement, inspiration to grow the other part, the other side, you know, and vice versa. If a child is very spirited, like I have a child who's spirited, that spirited child needs to be an environment who's a little more structured and is able to say, listen, like this is what you're going to do now, and this is what you're going to do next, and tell me how you'd like to change that. But there's not going to be a lot of chaos in those environments. So to know your child's temperament is a game changer. It empowers you as the parent to know, who is this kid? How do I show up for them? How do I support them? How do I nurture that environment that is going to be the best fit for their development? And sometimes that's an inside out process, because if we weren't nurtured that way, which many of us were not, including myself, and my mom, she was a psychologist. So she she sometimes missed those cues, right? So if we weren't nurtured that way, now you're right. And that you have to self-soothe, you have to nurture and show up for yourself in those ways, so that you develop those aspects of yourself and personality in a holistic way. But parents back in our my parents' days, I don't know, if our parents are similar in age, but back in those days, I mean, my mom trained with like Carl Rogers, Abraham Maslow. Like, it was a very different time when it came to parenting. Attachment theories and attachment parenting were not really solidified and practiced. So they were more humanistic. There was a lot of emphasis on leaving space and being more humanistic. I think we've evolved, and nowadays we're talking about temperament, we're talking about attachment, we're talking about the neuroscience and interpersonal neurobiological aspects of our, how we connect as parent and child and so forth. And so it's very valuable. Like, I'm so excited about this next generation, because in the early 2000, when I first started working with parents, here and there, I would have young parents often, who would come and say, "Hey, like, we heard about your conscious parenting and, peace parenting methods and so forth. We want to learn. We want to know. Tell us, like, what this is all about and blah blah blah." Now, almost every other parent is not only aware, they've practiced it, they've lived through it, they have heard about it, they've read books, they're informed. Like, parents nowadays they are conscious parents. They're really aware. Now, not everyone. I think there's still some parents who have trauma from their own past and so forth, and they're working through it. But it's really refreshing to see, the parents who are raising sort of this next generation. Kids are more conscious. Kids are more aware. Kids are definitely more empowered. I definitely see this next generation being empowered at home, but then, some of that power is taking away from them because of technology and social media, unfortunately. So that's the part that I wish we could stop and, like, really remove them. But unfortunately, you know, we can't. I mean, I don't know. I'm not very optimistic about it. So I'm just trying to raise awareness about it, and really encourage this next generation to be less plugged in and more aware of those addictive tendencies. Yeah, we're like dealing with new adversity for this next generation, but definitely more conscious. I don't know if Mitra is your experience as well, but more people are into mindfulness, more people are into conscious parenting, more people are just really excited and interested to implement, and use what it means to be in this wonderful energy field.
Yes, I do agree with you. And also, as you said, my greatest hope is about the children themselves. We now have true technology and addiction to technology and screen is an issue, but also we have been really far more enlightened. I would go as far as using that word. There are young people I talk to, and I think, like, wow. I mean, I've been in the presence of truly enlightened teachers, and sometimes I equate their level of at least energetic vibration, not necessarily not knowledge, at the same level. So my hope is usually at that end, at least now. But you are right. There are more awareness and there is more passion for learning. But I also am aware just knowing and reading is not sufficient. It is doing and hopefully eventually being that will solve this problem. Otherwise, um, I could know everything, but not do and apply most of them. But my hope is at that end, awakening of parents and the growth and enlightenment and higher vibrational children that are coming to this world. And I can see it. I mean, I used to hear this as sort of like a vague message from like, energetic world, but now I can see it. I stand there and I talk to young people and I think like, wow, these are like truly beings that are vibrating at a much higher level as at least I am. So yeah, I have a lot of hope.
Well, that's exciting to hear. Thank you. That's very exciting.
Nelly, it's been such a joy to have you here and have this conversation. For our listeners who want to learn more about your work and who want to connect with some of the resources that you mentioned, where should they go?
You can Google me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. Yes, would love to hear from you if you want to learn more about sort of peace parenting. You can reach me and contact me via phone or email, and I'm happy to connect with you. Yes, thank you.
And we'll also drop a link to your book, Peace Parenting Essentials, in our show notes. If you're interested in reading that, we highly recommend it. And Dr. Nelly, we hope to have you again on the show and to go deeper on some of these other topics. There's a wealth of knowledge and wisdom that you have to share on the topic, and we've only, I feel like, scratched the tip of the iceberg here.
I would love that. I really enjoyed our conversation and interview. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Until next time. Thank you so much for tuning in today. For a list of the links and other resources referenced in this episode, check out the podcast description.
If you're benefiting from our podcast, we'd love if you could help us reach more people by subscribing. Your support means the world to us. From our hearts to yours, we thank you.